again to discuss things.
I go loony as a light bulb battered bug. Simply loony. Sometimes fold and chew the rug. Mr. Life is swell in a padded cell. It'll chase those blues away. You can trade your gloom for a rubber room and injections twice a day. Just go loony like an acid casual.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. This is a special, completely unplanned episode that I just called Steve like an hour ago. And I was like, hey, let's record this. Steve, what are we recording an episode about today?
Today, we are talking about the latest WB animated DC feature, Batman the Killing Joke, adapting the classic Alan Moore and Brian Bolland graphic novel.
Indeed.
Or prestige format issue, actually.
Prestige format issue is what they called that?
Yeah, because it was only like 50 pages. It was basically just a double-sized issue. It wasn't an OGN.
Oh, good point. Yeah, and so I love this story. It's come under controversy over the last couple years. Here's a big surprise, everyone. The Joker's a bad person. I don't understand the controversy that surrounded this over the last couple years.
It's died down a lot, yeah. There's just been lots of pushes for it. A lot of it comes from behind-the-scenes stuff as opposed to the story itself, though, I think is fair to point out.
Maybe, I don't know, I still think it's just general silliness. Anyway, so, this was a really interesting choice for them to do in a graphic novel, or whatever you want to call it, or to do this as an animated film, and when I heard about it, I was like, I don't know if they can do that or not, because, it's the Holy Grail for me as a Joker fan. The Joker is my absolute favorite comic book villain, maybe my favorite comic book character. Batman's definitely my favorite superhero. This is the Joker story. And so I was really surprised to see them doing this, and I wasn't sure if they'd be able to pull it off. Steve, did they pull it off?
No, this is fucking terrible.
And see, I don't know the answer to that question. I wish I could just be as certain as you are on things. I feel like you walk out of every movie you see and you just have the most fully formed opinion that is perfectly solidified and is never gonna change. And me, I'm always like, oh, that was good, or I don't know, that was a thing.
See, that's the thing though. Usually I have a pretty fully formed opinion, but there are definitely certain cases where the experience takes over. For example, I am sure if I go back and watch Star Trek Into Darkness a second time, it falls apart completely, but I watched it one time in theaters and I loved the hell out of it.
Gotcha.
So, The Killing Joke was a very strong reaction though. This was a movie, every step of the way I'm like, this is terrible, this is terrible, this is terrible. Scene to scene, it was terrible.
See, and I don't know, I guess I was more interested in what they were trying to do with it, in a lot of ways responding, I think, to the criticism the story's received over the last couple of years. And I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea, or if Bruce Timm just really wants to make a Batgirl movie or show.
So Bruce Timm is a weird case when it comes to factoring into this movie, because the more I listen to him talk about it after the initial screening at the Comic-Con panel and then Q&As he's done afterwards, it seems like he doesn't give a shit about this movie. It seems the way he's talked about it, it makes it seem like he just did this because it was expected of him, and he didn't really care or scrutinize the ideas or what they came up with.
And see, it's interesting though. So all right, we knew going into this that they were going to add stuff to, fill it out more, which...
Yeah, is natural. It's only 40, 50 pages book. You can't get a 70-minute movie out of that.
Yeah, and so, that made sense. And for me, when I was initially heard about that, I was like, well, you could add more stuff with the flashbacks, or you could maybe do some stuff with Batman before he goes to talk to the Joker.
Yeah.
And they kind of did that in a way much more than I was expecting. But really, what this is, I think the, first, half hour or whatever of the movie is, okay, Batgirl gets criticized for just being there to fulfill the role of the rest of the characters in the movie. She has no character on her own. This event is like this huge traumatic thing for Barbara Gordon, and yet it's like it's not relevant to her at all. She's only there as a tool for others, is the criticism. I like that criticism a lot more than I like, oh, well, she was raped. That's, so the idea of giving her stakes, having her matter in the story, and doing a story that both leads into where Batman is at the beginning of The Killing Joke, even though I think he's kind of always there, leading into where Batman's at the beginning of The Killing Joke through her, I thought was a very interesting choice.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the idea of giving her more to do. My problem with it is, and before we even get into the actual story material we get, but just on a conceptual level, it seems like if you thought about it for more than 10 minutes, you would have figured out a way to insert Barbara Gordon stuff throughout the story, as opposed to just front load it for half an hour and then start the second part. Because, and Bruce Timm even says this, and he says in his mind it's a Batgirl movie and then the Killing Joke movie. He doesn't consider these two things intertwined at all, and it's really strange that he would say that or do that, because if you're going to do the obvious thing, at least in my mind, what you would do with Batgirl is you'd have Batgirl doing her thing and just intercut the events of Killing Joke as it happens and just set up why she's home. Like maybe, oh, this is the night she's going to tell her father that she's really Batgirl or something. Like, just add material that fills out the gap between Batman realizing Joker's not at Arkham and Joker getting to her house. Like, it's weird that you just tack on half an hour and then say that half an hour was just there because you wanted to tack it on.
That's true. Again, I don't really care why they did it. Let me rephrase that. I don't really care his motivations personally for doing this. I don't care that Bruce Timm wanted to make a Batgirl movie and they just won't let him. Because I mean, isn't that how Batman Brave and the Bold ended, with like a CGI Batgirl pilot?
Yeah.
And so like, it's just, you can really get the sense that he's been wanting to do a Batgirl thing. So in the back of my mind, that's there, but I just don't care about his motivations. What I care about is, what does it add to the piece? And I do think the idea of her going too far, her realizing she's been manipulated, and her being put on a very vulnerable state, her dealing with someone who is obsessed with her, her dealing with someone who very well could have become her Joker if she didn't get paralyzed, I find to be a really interesting idea. And then that all being taken away from her by the Joker, I think really lends into Batman's story here in a way that doesn't undercut Barbara Gordon as a character.
See, I don't agree. I think the idea is interesting. I think it's executed horribly, and I think in a lot of ways it's, because I never really agreed with the more feminist modern critique of Killing Joke, of its shafts Barbara Gordon, because honestly, Barbara Gordon was a character that was stagnating for a while, and I think her becoming Oracle was a much, much bigger step forward for her than anything else.
Yeah, and the argument, though, is, well, that wasn't the intent, right?
No, yeah.
That was just the side effect.
Yeah, I mean, because Len Wein even said cripple the bitch when Alan Moore asked if he could do this. So,
yeah.
I mean, like, that's fine. I never really saw the book as anti-Barbara Gordon, though, like some people thought. I think this movie, though, a lot of what it does with Barbara Gordon is some of the worst, most stereotypical female character plotting I've ever seen. I think it absolutely is disrespectful to Barbara Gordon. Everything about this movie revolves around her being a girl and having relationship trouble. And it just, it makes her the most stereotypical, angry, jealous girl I've seen in a comic book movie. Like,
yeah.
The whole movie, like, her villain is really rapey because she's a girl, and there's so much focus on, look, she's attractive, why doesn't she have a boyfriend? And, oh, Batman's here because she wants him to be her boyfriend, and then he doesn't, but then they have sex, and then she's all sad because he's not her boyfriend, and then it's really degrading, I think. And then Brian Azzarello comes out and says that no, the whole thing is supposed to be about how Barbara Gordon is finding control in her life, but like, control over what? Control over who's her boyfriend?
Yeah, I still think like I like the idea of the whole rapey villain. I think that really works, and it fills in and kind of makes her worst feel realized through Joker. That's her worst fear realized through Joker. I really like that part of it. I do not like, I heard the spoiler of, oh, it's a Batman and Batgirl relationship. And again, what is up with Bruce Timm and Batman and Batgirl being a thing?
I
Like, it was
don't know.
already weird enough in Batman Beyond, but since it was over, we all just kind of went, okay, whatever. But this, I don't like that. And I like, to be fair, it's not a relationship, right? It's a really awkward, tension building kind of hookup that they both feel really weird about after the fact. So I like that aspect of it, but literally I don't like anything else about that. That is the thing that like I have very mixed feelings on this movie, and I don't know if I like it or not, and so yeah, and that's probably my biggest dislike of it, though. That I can firmly say I do not like is Barbara Gordon and Batman being a thing.
And the bigger problem for me about that relationship is the genius of the book, I thought, was how pure and simple its intent was. All it really is, when you break it down, is Batman feels the need to have a conversation with the Joker, and the Joker's already getting a head start on that. And everything that happens with every other character, it's all interesting and it builds for them later, but at the end of the day, it's Joker wanting to tell Batman something and Batman wants to tell the Joker something. It's them coming to this independently. And because they're so similar, they come to it at the same time. The whole muddled relationship thing, that whole baggage, I don't like that baggage factoring into Batman's thought process as he deals with the Joker. I think that taints it.
I disagree with that because he has seen her become something like himself. He has seen himself pushed to the edge through her, and so that is what is inspiring him to go about this. And we still don't know what inspired the Joker to go about this, but I like the idea that it's something that's happening to him at the same time.
But I think you don't need to throw a Batgirl under the bus to do that, and then more so, you don't need a sexual relationship in there to fluster Batman's feelings.
I don't think that. Like, I agree. I don't like the sex. I don't like the sex scene. I don't like anything about their romantic tension. Again, like it's the same reason I don't like the people shipping Batman and Robin. That's just fundamentally wrong because it means Batman raised a child to have sex with it, and that's fucked up.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same thing with Barbara Gordon. It's 2 steps away from incest, and that's fucked up. It's not a gay thing. That's disturbing behavior.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't like the sexual relationship between them. I really don't. At the same time, would you buy it if Alan Moore did it?
No. I would.
Really?
I would. Because
Well, hold on, let me rephrase that question. Would you buy Alan Moore doing something like that?
Yeah, I'd buy Alan Moore as a type of person who would write that, yes.
Okay,
I wouldn't think
Brian
it's good
Azzarello-
because he did it.
No, I agree with that, but it kind of goes in with his whole, like, with the whole Alan Moore Watchmen superheroes would be really messed up people. That just act on their impulses without really thinking about the consequences and stuff. So it feeds into that, but ultimately it doesn't work in the story itself. So I can kind of see where Azzarello was grabbing these things from.
See,
I think
get
he might have just been like given this task by Tim of like, if we're gonna do this, I want to make a Batgirl movie. So make the first half of it about Batgirl because she's kind of just a non-entity in the Killing Joke anyway.
But okay, and I know you like Azzarello a little bit. I actually don't know if you like Azzarello.
I hate Azzarello's Joker book. I hate it. It is like, it goes Joker and then Endgame for the 2 worst Joker stories ever.
But
And
you really
so
like
I don't know why
one...
he got put in charge of this. I don't understand how that happened.
But you like his Lex Luthor movie or comic, and
Yeah.
do you like Batman Broken City?
I haven't read that.
Okay. I guess we're on the same plane with Azzarello then, because he's really hit and miss. The thing about
I'm so like that dude is so polarizing for me.
he's really odd. There are some things that are brilliant, and some things just I don't know. But the thing with Azzarello though is, regardless of if whether a person loves or hate him, he's a competent writer that even when he sucks, he at least is putting forth an effort, right? And even though the ideas, some of them are there, I don't think anyone can deny that how they're incorporated throughout the movie are exceptionally lazy. Like it could have everything they did here feels like this is the first draft of integration. Like no one bothered to think about anything more than just face value.
Can you give an example?
Like the entire Batgirl thing, like I said.
Well, let's get off the Batgirl thing because I think that's like a separate can of worms. Can you give an example of something from the book that is in the movie that works with what you're talking about?
Well, okay, when we get to the book adaptation stuff, it's more about the technical side of like voice acting and animation that it falls apart for me. But just the parts that Azzarello wrote would be the Batgirl stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
So I think Azzarello as a writer clearly didn't think about how he wants this story incorporated with the Batgirl stuff. And so it just feels like it's on its own plane. And then even though some of the ideas are there, he's not trying very hard to justify them being there. It seems very clear in places here where like you could have added some Batgirl material in between here, or you could have fleshed out Gordon as well as Batgirl here. Like you can think of a number of different ideas to flesh out side characters within the context of Killing Joke, and they never even bothered to discuss them. And it seems like it seems to me like everything about this project, from Azzarello's writing to the voice acting to the animation, is just lazy.
I don't know if I'd agree with that. The animation didn't wow me. The voice acting, I know you don't like Hamill or Conroy's performance. I actually like some of the subtleties of Hamill's performance, but Conroy reads some of the lines really, really flat. Like,
I think this is Kevin Conroy's worst performance as Batman ever. I think he's abysmal.
Yeah, I'd tend to agree. I mean, you know, you have to get some of those lines right, and I just don't think he does. Like, when he says, "Hello, I came to talk," that's a really important line, and it just doesn't sell. You know who would have been a lot better at this? Is Bruce Greenwood.
Bruce Greenwood would have been great. The guy that did Batman's voice during Beware the Batman would have been perfect for this too.
I haven't seen that one yet, but just Bruce Green, like a lot of the moments in this, particularly when he's mad and he's fighting the Joker in that last little moment before the joke, when he's mad and he's fighting the Joker, like that reminds me so much of the scene from Red Hood where Batman and Jason are fighting in that one bathroom, and then Batman just hands Jason his ass. Yeah. And, like, it's a really similar thing, and it should have been played in a very similar way, particularly with the way Hamill was playing that scene. But Conroy, there are a couple moments where I'm okay with him, but he's just too damn stoic throughout the entire story. He has no emotion in this, and yeah, it bothers the hell out of me.
There are so many instances here where, like, the way the book's written, it's not written to necessarily be the most naturalistic, real world dialogue. It's meant to be a little bit heightened. It's meant to be in places a little bit Shakespearean, where the characters they're discussing things in monologue, which is fine. But you need someone that's able to get the rhythm of the sentences down, and Kevin Conroy doesn't even try.
Yeah, and it's like, it's crazy because what happened to I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman? He can do stuff like this.
He used to be able to, is the thing. I think he's just gotten old and no one's letting him go.
Yeah. I do think Kevin Conroy is the worst thing about this movie, which makes me really sad because he's fucking Kevin Conroy, right?
Yeah. I mean, he used to be the definitive Batman voice. I feel like he's just damaging his legacy these days.
That sucks. Yeah, I agree. That really bothers me. There's also a weird Batman Begins reference in here. Like, I've seen Kevin Conroy talk kind of, you know, I'll be frank about it, talk shit about Christian Bale's Batman voice. And he's like, "Oh, Christian, what are you doing?" And I think he's kind of let, like, the whole, "you're the best Batman" voice go to his head a little bit. Because, like, he should have refused to say the "swear to me" line. Because it's not as intimidating as Christian Bale's "swear to me." Like, bat, demon, gargly voice all you want, but that shit would scare the hell out of me. And in here, he's just like the subtler, more, you know, stoic stuff when he's being intimidating works. Like when he goes, "I'm going to count to 10. 1, 9. That line really worked for me. But then when he goes, "swear to me," it's like, no, that's just not the same. it doesn't have that same intimidation to it.
The situation for whoever he's holding up that moment isn't heightened enough for that line to work. Like, it's just a weird thing to say in that context.
Yeah, I really don't like Kevin Conroy in this, but let's talk about Hamill some, because I don't think we're going to reach any kind of agreement or any kind of real point on the Batgirl thing. I like the ideas in it. I need to see it again before I can give a definitive answer, before I say how much it works on its own.
Sure.
I like the overall idea of if you're going to add to the Killing Joke, add to Barbara Gordon, because I can at least see the idea that it kind of shafts Batgirl to make her, as a person, an entity between Batman and Gordon.
Right.
I kind of like the conception of trying to give her own story. I don't know how well it works on its own, but I can definitively say I hate the sexual tension and the sex scene between her and Batman. That legitimately bothers me. That's the only like definitive thing I can say about that yet. But let's talk about Hamill's performance, because you hate it, and I actually do quite like at least parts of it.
Okay, so I think it's really, really bad, and I know Mark Hamill has gone out and said that he tried something different with this one. Like, he's not doing his regular Joker voice. He's trying to make it a little bit different, and so he's kind of just like natural Luke Skywalker-ish when we're in the flashbacks, and then he's kind of a little bit of a different Joker for the main story stuff. My problem is there's no energy to some of these. The worst delivery in this entire movie comes from Hamill when he's fighting Batman and he says, "Why aren't you laughing?"
Okay, we're going to talk about this.
I really hate that delivery. There are takes in this where Joker is laughing, and I can almost hear Hamill coughing.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly,
that might just be the strain
scene
of the voice.
Sorry, go ahead.
That could just be the strain of the voice, but fair enough.
But I mean, there's supposed to be that big laugh when he comes out of the vat in the flashbacks, and there I can buy the cough a little bit. Fine, he just transformed, but it's not red like that. Whatever. But then at the end, when he tells Batman the joke and they're both laughing, it's just, I cringe. I feel like the voice isn't even coming from that body anymore.
It is a little, like, subdued laughter. It doesn't have the whole manic laughter we're used to with the Joker. It's more of like a chuckle than a guttural laugh, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and that, I agree, that is kind of bothersome for me. But let's talk about the "why aren't you laughing" line, because I knew going into this that you were going to hate that, just because you talked about hating the delivery in the trailer. And I will fully admit, every time I've ever read that line, in my head, he's not angry when he's saying it. He's not, like, mad or in any kind of rage state. He's just, like, legitimately asking, "Why aren't you laughing?" Like, he honestly doesn't understand why Batman won't laugh. And that's still a very valid interpretation of that delivery, and it works, I think, better in the book than it does in the animation, because just when you look at his face when he says that line, it's not drawn the same, right?
Yeah.
He is, like, it's interesting because it's coming from the same place, and that's why I like it. It's coming from the same place of fundamentally not understanding why Batman isn't laughing at the fact that life is a joke, but it's from a place of being angry at Batman for not understanding that life is a joke, as opposed to just not being able to, or being sad that he can't understand that.
See, I can understand taking it as an angry statement. My problem is more so just he's eating his words. Like, he's not saying, "Why aren't you laughing?" He's saying, "Why aren't you laughing?" Like, his words are running together. It doesn't sound natural. It doesn't sound like Joker. It sounds like it's just Hamill gargling.
See, I disagree with that. I think I can clearly hear every phrase in the thing. And have you watched it more than once at this point?
Yeah, I've seen it twice now.
Okay, and maybe I'll come to agree with you over time, but for me, that delivery did work. I was really surprised by that delivery. And you've not only seen it two times, but you've also seen it in the trailer. So I was really surprised by that delivery, and just seeing it as him being angry at Batman for not getting it really works for me, because it ties in with their whole fucking relationship of, you don't, like, if he's sad that Batman doesn't get the joke, then why go to all the trouble? But if he's angry, if there's passion behind it, I buy all the trouble of all the maniac schemes and stuff more.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that, like, it's an isolated movie, so that doesn't really work, but at the same time it's not, you know? It is the Killing Joke, which, even though it's always supposed to have stood on its own, it never does, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, we reworked it into so many parts of canon, and it was built too by so many other things. It's hard to look at it in isolation. But I see where you're coming from. Maybe I would have enjoyed that aspect more. Maybe I would have gone softer on just Hamill if Kevin Conroy had any sort of, like, chemistry with him this time, and because he doesn't. And then just in that scene, but all around the movie, really, but just even in that scene, the animation doesn't work. I think the animation is really, really bad. There are 3 or 4 scenes where it looks beautiful because those are shots for the trailer, but even then the movements are really stilted, and everywhere else I think the animation is just awful. Like, there are so many. There's a particular instance where Batgirl is closing a water bottle, and not only are her hands not moving in a natural way, but, like, the proportions are out of whack. And then sorry, go ahead.
I was watching this in a movie theater, so I either have that excuse or I have it, like, blown up 10,000 times bigger than you, and so I have no excuse not to have noticed stuff like that. I don't know which one it is.
And I mean, to be fair, you love the story, so there's definitely a little bit more of, like, you had more hype going into it than I did, I think. But
I don't know, like I said, I didn't know if they can pull this off, and I don't know if they did or not.
That's fair. I mean,
because, I mean, honestly, like, no matter how you feel about the Batgirl stuff, I do think that is a smart decision that it doesn't interrupt the Killing Joke. You can fan edit the hell out of this really easily, right? You can just cut all that out, and it has absolutely no bearing on the story of the Killing Joke.
Yeah, you can't, because it basically cuts to black before we even get the Killing Joke stuff. It's weird. You can cut all that out, and I'd still not like the movie, not only for Hamill's performance, but just with the animation. Like, for example, you get that moment where Joker's singing his song, and for one, I don't like the delivery of that song, and the other thing is just the way that's happening. It's animated like a Looney Tunes cartoon, whereas everything else is animated like the rest of the movie. It just doesn't. There are moments where, like, the animation's not even consistent from scene to scene, and
see, I don't know. I liked the Looney Tunes. I like the song. I like the delivery. The only nitpick I have about the delivery is in the book. I believe it's written or spelled out. Just go LOO-OO-OONEY. So you're supposed to pronounce that uni. Like, you're supposed to, like, break on the 2 O's in the middle and give those an extra enunciation. Just go uni like an acid casualty. And what's up with Alan Moore and putting music and sound in his comic books? Just
I don't know.
General little side rant there. It's in a lot. Like, all the examples I can think of are Alan Moore. But anyway, like, so I don't like that choice, but that's a director choice or something. That's a director choice, or maybe it's Hamill's choice. I don't know. I have to assume that they probably had an idea of how they wanted the song to be sung, so they gave him notes. I'm gonna blame Bruce Timm, just because I can. But I
wonder though how much Bruce Timm really had say over this, because it's directed by Sam Liu and it's written by Brian Azzarello, and it seems like Bruce Timm just oversaw it as opposed to did much with it.
I don't know. I just like to blame Bruce Timm for things. No, like, I like the delivery of the song quite a bit. I wish Hamill had gone just more over the top with it, and maybe that's why I like it more than you, because of that, like, Looney Toony animation, where everything is just, like, people are able to extend themselves longer than they should be capable of, stuff like that. Maybe I like it more because the over-the-top animation helps sell the song better. I won't know until I can just listen to the song. I'm assuming someone will do me the favor of cutting Gordon's bit out of that, like, audio editing that out, and so I can just listen to the Hamill song on its own.
The song is supposed to be on the movie soundtrack, so you're probably getting a clean version from there.
Okay. Oh, man, I'm really tempted to take a copyright strike to throw that on this episode. But, yeah, I don't know. The song, I really did like the song, the performance of the song, the way they didn't shy away from showing the, they used their R rating. They definitely earned that R rating and showed you what Joker did to Barbara Gordon, right?
Interesting. I don't think they earned their rating. I don't think this is an R movie. I think this is a tough PG-13.
Oh, no, I think what they showed to Barbara, the way they moved stuff around on that,
honestly,
I think they earned their R.
Honestly, I feel like Batman or Superman versus the Elite in places is tougher than this. Like, there's just... They say that they didn't care whether or not they got a PG-13 or an R. I don't see a board of random people giving this an R. I see them... Because, I mean, you watch some of the other DC New 52 ones, there's stuff in there that's a lot darker than this.
I mean, there's more blood and stuff in this, though. There's more violence. They don't shy away from showing you that.
But even like more nudity, like we don't see enough of Barbara for me to constitute this as an R rating.
I don't know, dude. It's in like you see different pictures at different angles of her, all throughout that hallway. I really think that earned that R. And then I think there are other things in this that were just added to make it feel more adult that I don't like Batman talking to hookers.
That hooker thing is weird.
Just in general, that's another thing I definitively do not like. The Joker doesn't care about sex. I think like most things, if he were going to really want to have sex with anyone, it would be Batman. But just generally, he would use sex primarily to get what he wants, and that's usually directed at Harley. Otherwise, I don't think he has that need for it like, any other human would. Because he's just kind of, like, not better than that, but moved beyond that need. He's just that demented that he doesn't have that shred of humanity in him, right?
Yeah, it feels kind of odd to consider the Joker a person that every time he breaks out, he just has to go to a prostitute for a little while.
And it seems like Batman would have caught on sooner, right?
Yeah.
That scene really bothered me. There are things in this that I definitely don't like. Kevin Conroy, the sexual relationship between Batman and Batgirl. I mean, I like that they had the good sense to make it feel weird and they didn't make it a normal thing. And I like that they didn't make it like an ongoing relationship. And so, like, when I heard that they were going to be in a relationship in this movie, I was like, oh no, they're going to make it, Batman's getting revenge for Joker killing his girlfriend kind of thing. And I don't think it's that.
It's not that, but again, it's just the Abyss thing I guess works, but I still don't like the idea of it within the canon of this movie. Part of Batman's frustration comes from a sexual relationship with Barbara. Like, part of, like, clearly some part of the guy that a guy that dressed up like a bat because his parents were shot and he blazed himself for it constantly, a guy like that is going to factor into his brain at some point, maybe if I just didn't have sex and just talked to where this might not have happened. And I don't like that idea messing in his head.
I don't know. I'm going to have to watch it again to see how much I agree with that, because I didn't get the read at all that it was because they had sex.
I don't think it's just because they had sex. I think...
Yeah, but I don't think that was there at all for me, and I didn't get that impression at all, but maybe that's just me being too much into the book.
But see, the thing about it, though, is you can definitely read it as that's not being there. It's just knowing Batman as the type of person he is. For me, it would seem ridiculous that wouldn't factor into his brain whether we see it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my irritation with it. Just especially when you get that scene with Bullock where he's like, "That's an odd choice of words. Why would Gordon like me to see this?" Like a guy that thinks like that, I think at some point in his mind he's gonna start thinking about that last moment with Barbara before everything went weird.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see it again before I can really come down on it at all. And I'm sorry for anyone that's watching this, like, wanting my definitive opinion. Do I like The Killing Joke or not? And I can tell you this much. I didn't have a Captain Logan Batman vs. Superman moment in this discussion. At least not yet. You know, Steve, because he hates everything, Steve just wants to poison everyone's enjoyment of anything, as we all know. And so I wanted to go into this to test myself to see, like, if I came out of it and how I felt about it and whether or not Steve could ruin it for me. And he hasn't, but at the same time, I'm not convinced that I love it either. I still don't know how I feel. I have much more definitive answers on what I liked and didn't like about it.
Would you would you agree with me though that regardless of how we feel about it now, it is a movie on several levels that could have been much improved? Like, it's nowhere near as good as, even though I think we both have problems with Dark Knight Returns, but even that I think is a better translation of material than this.
No, because this only cuts one major moment from the story, at least so that I can think of off the top of my head. This only cuts one major moment, and otherwise, like, Dark Knight Returns didn't cut major moments, but they cut the thing that made Dark Knight Returns, which is the internal monologue. Like, that's the book that made internal monologuing the thing. Like, I know other people were doing it, but it was Dark Knight Returns that really did it right. And to cut that out of that movie was just missing the point of that book. And that didn't happen with this. They didn't miss the point of The Killing Joke. It could have maybe been done better. They could have gotten Bruce Greenwood instead of Kevin Conroy, but the fanboys would have lost their shit. So I understand that decision, even though I don't agree with it.
But see, I think they understood The Killing Joke. I don't think they had it. I don't think they conveyed it well. I really don't think this movie is anywhere near as tight and put together and clear with all of its motivations as The Killing Joke is. And even though Dark Knight Returns has problems, you can still see why Dark Knight Returns through that movie was a seminal work. And I don't think you can see that with Killing Joke. I think the Killing Joke movie just feels like a generically bad Batman story.
I don't know if I agree
didn't have the association with the book, I wouldn't read into this movie. I would think I would be too detached by every other aspect of it.
Fair point. Again, it'll just depend on how long this goes on for me, because I've only seen Dark Knight Returns once, and it pissed me off that much. Because I'm like, how could you miss what made that book that book? And this didn't happen. Even if they didn't do things phenomenally, they still clearly understood what they were doing. And even though they added things, they understood what needed to... Like, they understood that if you're going to add something, I think they added the right kind of thing, whether or not they did it well.
I don't know about that. I feel like they added the obvious cliche thing and didn't think about it.
What I mean by the right kind of thing, I mean tying Barbara Gordon into it more.
I think they had the right intent, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for.
They had the right intent. The specific things they added, I don't think were the right things.
That's fair. Now, let me ask you this, because obviously you didn't change my opinion, but you've definitely helped me develop it further, and
Sure.
Once I see it again, that'll get me even further with this. Have I altered your opinion in any way?
Not really. Like,
No? Okay.
and I mean, people like to read into some of these conversations. In no way am I trying to force Ian to hate this movie just because I did. I just had a really bad experience with it, so I sound more angry.
I think part of the problem, because, like, you have this a lot, just to be kind of critical of Steve Baxley.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem is you watch all the trailers and think about what they might be doing, and so by the time you finally get to the experience, you know, you can certainly remove yourself from all that as much as possible and try to be objective as possible. But I don't think there's ever any fully overcoming building of expectations beforehand, good or bad. I don't think anyone is fully capable of overcoming those. And so I feel like watching all this stuff and speculating about it before it hits really does kind of change what your opinion might otherwise be.
I think that's true. I think, though, it stops being true after a certain point. Where, like...
Certainly.
Yeah, like, after initial release, that's certainly going to factor in. Like, after about a month or so where the trailers are just gone and all you have is the movie, I don't think that's a factor anymore.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is this isn't that far off. So, like, maybe you'll come and change your mind on parts of it over time now.
Probably. I don't know if I'll ever go back to it, though.
Fair enough. And I can understand that reaction, because, again, Dark Knight Returns. Let me ask you this. Where would you rank this in the big, let's call it big four, Batman comic book stories that have been directly adapted for these movies? Dark Knight Returns, Year One, Under the Red Hood, and now Killing Joke. Where would you rank those?
So Under the Red Hood, I think, is the best. And then after that, I would put Dark Knight Returns. I actually like that movie a lot. It's got problems, but I like it a lot. And I'd put Year One over this, because even though Year One is really awkward in places, I give them a pass because it's the first time they really tried to do something on this level.
Gotcha. For me, and this is just for now, I'll have to see it again before I change this. Under the Red Hood is a better movie, though. I will definitely say that. Under the Red Hood is a much better movie. So that's number one. I think Year One is just inherently more faithful than this is. Like, this is pretty damn close, but adding that much story and particularly doing the stuff with Barbara Gordon and Bruce Wayne having sex, that really bothered me in a way that it didn't need to, because I don't think it needs to be there. So that's why I put Year One over this. And then I'll put this in Dark Knight Returns, because this at least fully understood what it was adapting, unlike Dark Knight Returns. I feel like that just completely missed it. And just, like, changing the narration to dialogue made it even worse. And,
That's fair.
That movie. Ugh.
That's fair. I think in a lot of ways, the problems seem pretty universal. It's just a matter of how much they're bugging us. One thing I want to mention, just as a sake of comparison, is this comic is, 48 pages, something like that? It's pretty short. It's just a double-sized issue, really. And so it's understandable that they wanted to add material. Now, another comic that they adapted that is very, very short, shorter than this, is Superman versus the Elite, which is an adaptation of a Joe Casey comic that's Action Comics. I think it's called What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way. I don't remember the issue number. But that's only a 22-page story. And it's really popular, it's really influential, it's really important, and they turned that into a 75-minute movie with tons of added different material, and I think it's genius. So it feels weird to me that they could have pulled out all the stops and made that into a great film, and here, it doesn't seem like they attempted much. And Bruce Timm has said they didn't try to put his personal spin on this, which I can sympathize with to a degree, because you don't want it to become Bruce Timm's Killing Joke, you still want it to be Alan Moore's. At the same time,
even though his name isn't on it.
Even though his name's not on it. But at the same time, though, I think you could have put forth a much better, genuine effort to make it work.
Maybe. I think it works on some level. I don't know how well, though. I can say a couple definitive things. Batgirl fucking Batman, I'm not okay with, outside of Batman porn parodies.
That is the only context where it's okay.
Right, and even that is kind of weird. But anyway, that I'm not okay with. Joker going to hookers every time, I'm not happy with putting that in here. And Kevin Conroy's performance, I don't like. But I can definitively say they set out to do the Killing Joke, and I do feel like they at least understood and got the Killing Joke on screen in some way, shape, or form, in a way that they didn't with Dark Knight Returns. I can say that, and, Dark Knight Returns, and I'd put that on the league with Justice League Doom, where it's just like they had the same idea, but they missed something along the way. And this is not that. This, they clearly understood what they were doing, and they executed that. How well remains to be determined, but it's clearly an adaptation of The Killing Joke with with an end of Batgirl days story added on the beginning.
Would you agree with me if I said, if there was anyone looking for this movie and they're beyond excited, remember to temper those expectations?
No, I think that really is what helped me enjoy this as much as I did, like to the level that I did at least. I was walking into this knowing Batman and Batgirl are gonna be together, and I'm like, I really, really don't like that. Don't make The Killing Joke suck, guys. And so going into it with lowered expectations, thank you, Steve Baxi, going into it with lowered expectations made me enjoy it more. You know what, Steve? Keep watching all the trailers and stuff for movies and getting increasingly more negative on them so that you can influence my ability to go in and see the thing. Because you did that with Batman vs. Superman too, and I ended up enjoying that movie specifically because of how much you hated it. So there we go.
No, that's just what I mean is, like, make sure your expectations aren't through the roof for this thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, regardless, I was gonna be nervous anyway. Even before I found out about the Barbara Gordon Batman relationship, I was like, can you really do The Killing Joke? And I do think that they really did The Killing Joke. I just don't know how well yet.
That's fair. This is going to be interesting to see what the general critical reaction to this is, because I'm seeing lots of mixed stuff, but I'm nowhere finding a consensus on it.
I'm really curious what Gail Simone is going to think of this more than anyone else, because she has been like the most vocal critic of The Killing Joke for the last year and a half.
I know she was grossed out by the Batgirl thing, but I think most rational people were. So I'm not sure if she saw the movie.
Oh, the Batgirl having sex with Batman thing. Yeah, I don't know about that. I just mean generally, you know, taking Batgirl and giving her a role in this story as opposed to being a pawn.
Right.
I'm curious what she will think of that. And she's been really hostile to The Killing Joke over the last year and a half, but whatever. She keeps going, I really don't care about this movie. Then quit tweeting about it, Gail Simone. I'm having trouble believing you don't care.
Yeah, she's telling us she doesn't care because she wants us to deeply, deeply understand how much she doesn't care.
Right? It gets a little suspicious, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I love Gail Simone, but it seems like this particular thing bugs her more than she lets on.
Yeah, I think it's gotten under her skin more than she'll admit. But anyway, that'll do it, I think, unless you had anything else you wanted to bring up.
No, I think I'm good.
You got all the hate out of your heart?
Yep, for the most part. I gotta reload later, so...
I like to imagine that you, like, just opened your chest and looked and you're like, yep.
Yeah,
that's my mental image right now.
I just had to pull off the chest plate there. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and do a rating. And keep in mind, for me, this is completely tentative. I don't know how much this is gonna stick for me.
Sure.
I'm gonna go with the 3.5 out of 5. Traveling band of circus freaks that are also homicidal maniacs willing to help the Joker, coincidentally showing up. And that's a problem in the book, too. Don't get me wrong. There's a problem in the book. I don't know how necessary the action scene was with them, but I didn't mind it.
I wish the Gotham Knight comic followed up on that whole Joker goes back to that circus and is welcomed by the midgets thing. Like, are they family? What's their connection? Where did they come from?
And yeah, and we just got a really shitty Hush story, and that's it.
We did. That's a really bad story. But I'll go ahead and give this... Honestly, I'm trying to find aspects of it I liked so I can justify giving it a 1.
Damn, dude, I gave Kong King of the Apes a 0, and I cannot believe that it's honestly that bad.
I mean, I really can't think of anything I genuinely liked about this. I really can't. Okay, I'll give this. I like Tara Strong. I think Tara Strong is a good Batgirl. So I'll give it a 1 out of 5. I'll give it 1 out of 5 paralyzed, creepy dead bodies that Gordon loves Batman to look at.
That's a really strange relationship there too, right?
Yeah.
It's like, Batman, go look at these dead bodies. I'll call you on the phone and jerk off while you look at them. Like, that's a really disturbing relationship right there. Fuck it, you can have as much Batgirl and Batman fucking as you want. Just don't do that on screen, please. Okay, that'll do it. Everyone, thanks very much for watching. Please leave your comments below to let us know what you thought of the movie. Are you with me? Do you not know how to feel? Did you love it? Did you hate it like Steve hates everything? Really, please let us know, because I'm really curious to get people's read on this movie.
Agree.
Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the politician.
And we are your geeky gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.